Let's bring in Bill Benjamin, who heard the gunfire from his home just 3 blocks away, rushed in to help. Ben, I'm so sorry that your community is going through this. Walk us through those first moments when you first heard the shots.
Good morning. So we live approximately 3 city blocks from the church and the school. My daughter went from K to 8th grade there. Beautiful day. We had the windows open on our home. I was on a business conference call, and I grew up as a hunter, so I'm very familiar with guns and all of that. So all of a sudden, I started hearing this massive amount of gunfire, and at first I couldn't believe it because approximately, I'm guessing it went on for 3 or 4 minutes, and anybody that knows anything about firearms, I mean, for continual fire for that long is a lot of ammo that was spent. So anyway, I hear this very distinctive sound. It went on for a very considerable time. I got off the call, got in my vehicle, drove around to the school and the church, and I would say I was there probably somewhere around 10 minutes after the shooting. There had already been a substantive law enforcement presence there. They started cordoning it off with the yellow tape, and I was just watching screaming parents, crying parents go right by me towards the church and the school. And after I called my daughter, and she left work and came on over, and a gentleman, I would say around 30-ish, a survivor of the incident, came walking towards where I was and some other law enforcement people. He spoke with them, and then I got a chance to speak with him for about 20 minutes. And he described that he normally doesn't go to church there, but he was there that day. And when the shooting started, he laid down in the pews, and the bullets were so close to him and other individuals there that the bullets were shredding the pews, and wood from the bullets was literally falling on his face. So a very lucky gentleman to survive that. So we have many friends there. We know some of the teachers. So it's a very nice family involved church and school.
You know, you're familiar with guns, and I feel like anyone who is familiar with guns would know that that was gunshots going off. But these kids were so innocent. In some of those interviews, they said they thought it was fireworks. That's how innocent and young these kids were. You know, you're talking about the people who were there. I believe you said your daughter, her best friend's family was at the church when this happened. Have they said anything to you guys?
So some of these people are friends who you described there. Her best friend family is very good friends with some people that were at the Mass. And we're also friends with these folks also. So they were at the Mass. And they, her friend described to my daughter, you know, what went on internally inside the church. It was absolute chaos and obviously a complete disaster in there. Excuse me. And so I don't know, you know, if my daughter was here, she could describe it better. But she did tell me what you alluded to, yes.
Well, seeing the videos of these parents, there was one mom going by, it looked like she was going to collapse. She was so upset. And that, I mean, seeing these parents holding these little kids walking out of this, it is gut-wrenching to watch. And my heart goes out to every single person involved in this. Thank you for your time, Bill, to give us this recount of what you heard yesterday. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Of course.
God bless all those people.
Prayers to your community, Bill.
And reactions are pouring into yesterday's school shooting, and as usual, some people out there using the opportunity to play politics. Former Biden press secretary Jen Psaki spinning this tragedy into an attack on President Trump's crime crackdown in Washington, D.C. Peter Ducey joining us live at the White House with more on this. Hi, Peter.
Bill, good morning. Jen Psaki did not wait for any information at all about the shooter or about the motive before she took to X to post the following. Prayer is not freaking enough. Prayers do not end school shootings. Prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers. And then, when kids are getting shot in their pews at a Catholic school mass, and your crime plan is to have National Guard put mulch down around D.C., maybe rethink your strategy. Minnesota is blue statewide, and the governor, Tim Walz, wasn't ready to make such a big jump.
Receiving a call from President Trump, who was with his leadership team of the Attorney General and the Vice President, expressing their deep condolences amongst the horror that happened and an offer to provide the support to the folks here in Minnesota of what's needed.
On the Psaki point about the National Guard, Vice President Vance is telling USA Today, we don't want indefinitely to put National Guardsmen on the street of our cities. We just want to make sure those streets, make those streets more safe. And even Democratic D.C. Mayor Bowser agrees.
We greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city, a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer.
Mayor Bowser also says that she does worry that all these extra federal law enforcement officers on the street could erode some of the trust that residents have with the Metro PD department, the normal beat cops that'll be here long after the National Guard goes away. But we've come a long way from a couple weeks ago when Mayor Bowser called the federal crime crackdown authoritarian. Bill.
Yeah, we certainly have. Peter Ducey live at the White House for us. Peter, thank you.
And Mary Catherine Ham joins us now. Thank you for being here, Mary Catherine. Jen Psaki said what she said about prayer. There was other posts like that on X, but also the mayor of Minnesota said something similar. Listen here.
Don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
Mary Catherine, you also were very helpful yesterday in providing some context of this, mother of young children. Let's get your thoughts this morning.
Yeah, I just think, first of all, my thoughts and prayers are with the families who are dealing with this unspeakable tragedy today and having to talk to their children about it, those who lost their children. It is right and good and I think necessary to pray in these times. It is sad to hear public figures very quickly turn to saying that prayer is nonsense or unnecessary or weak. And I think if I were to give them the good faith interpretation that they're unwilling to give their friends on the right, I would say that this is a call to action, right? They're frustrated that there's not action that goes with prayer. But your response does not need to be to denigrate prayer. And it becomes actually perverse when the people in the pews were likely attacked for practicing their religion, for practicing this tenet of faith. And you say that because that didn't protect them or because that doesn't solve the problem, that people should not pray and that you denigrate that practice. I have lived a life that has had its portion very different, but nonetheless of sort of unthinkable tragedy. And prayer did not solve the fact that my husband died while I was 7 months pregnant, but it did not prevent that, but it got me through every single day after that. Mm-hmm. And it helped me to raise my children. And I just think that taking the message to the public that is somehow an insult to people who were killed while practicing their faith is so gross.
Mary Catherine, we see this over and over. First responders are still on scene trying to figure out what happened, and then we get the inevitable tweets from politicians politicizing it, right? We saw it from Jen Psaki. We saw Hakeem Jeffries yesterday say that weapons of war shouldn't be on the streets before we even knew what the weapons were. Why do we see this over and over and over? People refusing to at least wait for some facts to come in.
Well, and the thing is, look, people are upset with good reason, right? There is evil in the world. We don't always know how to defeat it. That's why I think prayer is important, by the way, because we don't always know how to defeat it. But I understand being emotional, being upset, being frustrated, being heartbroken. So many are. And so you want to jump to whatever is comforting to you. And in some cases, politicizing it becomes sort of a safe place to be, but it's not a helpful place to be. A helpful place to be would be, especially if your job is in the press, to stick with the facts, to be rational about it. I think I preferred Governor Walz's take there to Jacob Frey's, where you're not going to that well immediately, because I think it does send people to their corners instead of allowing them to come together at least to grieve, if not to agree on solutions to a problem.
Mary Catherine, so I've known you for a long time, and I know what you went through and how you dealt with it with such grace, and have come out on the other side in a way that is just a joy to see with your additional children that you've gone on to have.
Thank you.
One last question about the bigger picture, and that is the crackdown on crime. You did have this from Politico reporter Rachel Bade, who is putting this into context for people about how voters and citizens are seeing Trump's crime crackdown. Listen here.
When you think about voters and how they feel right now, Trump is really leaning in and sort of latching on to those fears. He wants to be the one to tell voters, I'm tough on crime. What are you going to do? And what Democrats are doing right now is saying, oh, you don't have the authority and crime is down. That doesn't resonate with people.
Yeah. Your final thoughts this morning on that part.
Yeah, I think, look, I don't want to get too antiseptic about it and into the stats, but the fact is that the vast majority of gun crime is with not a mass shooting. So in D.C., for instance, there were far fewer homicides in the last 20 days than there were before that, right? Most people look at that and go, okay, that's good. We want more of that. So I think Democrats, the combination of saying prayer is bad and also cracking down on crime is bad, I think is a bad message combo to take to normal Americans, most of whom are on the side of prayer and cracking down on crime.
All right, Mary Catherine, thank you, and go hug your children today as school's underway.
Thanks. As everybody should.
You are there,
yeah.
Yes, indeed. Take care.
Reagan. Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions for you.
Sure.
Democrats, including former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, attacked prayer and pushed gun control in the aftermath of yesterday's shooting. What's the White House's response to their comments?
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works, and who believe that in a time of mourning like this, when beautiful young children were killed while praying in a church, it's utterly disrespectful to deride the power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith. And I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves who need it right now more than ever.
And let's bring in former SWAT officer Chad Ayers and family therapist Ken Howard. It's great to have you both here, and your expertise is appreciated. Just for our viewers and for you to hear, this is a 10-year-old witness. Watch.
It was super scary because, like, we've never practiced it in the church. We've only practiced it in the main school, so we really didn't know what to do. We just got into the pews and he shot through the stained glass windows. And then my friend Victor, he was like laying on top of me, like making sure I was safe, and he got hit. So that was really brave of him.
Chad, one of the things that you do is help schools figure out what they can do to protect themselves. Your thoughts this morning?
Not again, is what I'm thinking, Dana. Obviously, my heart breaks. The start of the school year. And yet another one. Obviously, when I started Proactive Response Group, my goal, Dana, was to be out of business one day, that these events quit happening. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And especially over the last 2 months, I feel like we've seen an increase of attacks, whether that's knife attacks, gun attacks, whatever it is. But it's disheartening, and it really drives home the point. And again, I'm not here to Monday morning quarterback these victims. We learn from these events. I'm heartbroken. But it's time we really dive in and start evaluating the type of training we are doing in these schools. You know, are we focused solely on how much does this cost? Or are we looking at, are we providing valuable, effective training, or are we just checking a box? So many organizations say, well, let's just show this quick 5-minute YouTube video. That's not training. That does not prepare you for the worst case scenario.
Ken Howard, I want you to listen to the principal of Annunciation Catholic School here.
Seconds of this situation beginning, our teachers were heroes. children were ducked down, adults were protecting children, older children were protecting younger children, and as we heard earlier, it could have been significantly worse without their heroic action. This is a nightmare, but we call our staff the Dream Team, and we will recover from this.
There are multiple layers of trauma and interlocking complicated webs of trauma here, from the young man that you saw that was the witness to families who lost people and those first responders who were there on the scene. What's the most important thing that these different types of groups deal with immediately?
Well, the main difference between what you had me on for the Texas flooding and this is a moral evil. This is a deeply tragic experience because this person dehumanized these children and saw them as objects, not as people to care for. And it is that act that is an act against God, because how you treat the creation is a reflection of how you feel about the Creator. And our job now is to humanize the people here, the children, the parents, the priests, the nuns, the administrators, the EMTs, the police, that all have now been impacted and traumatized by this. And to see them not as statistics, not as political fodder, but as people to now be loved and cared for. The Catholic teaching on building a just society is predicated on life and dignity of humans and of the call to family and community for participation. And so now the question becomes, how do we now justly act and humanize the people that are here and love them well?
The First Lady wrote this, that the tragic mass killing in Minnesota illuminates the need for preemptive intervention in identifying potential school shooters. Early warning signs are often evident, with many individuals exhibiting concerning behaviors and making violent threats online prior to their actions. Chad, has that been your experience as you've had to deal with many of these?
100%, Dana, and I appreciate the First Lady stepping up to the plate on this. Obviously, so many of these training models out here focus just on the event, that short time period. But what we want to do, and with Proactive Response Group, if we can focus on the recognition of early warning signs, she's exactly right. Upwards, over 80% of the people who commit these attacks, there were early warning signs that were missed. Whether that is inappropriate interest in mass past acts of violence, which we do know he had, inappropriate interest in weapons, disassociation from their normal social circles. I mean, there's so many of these. So if we can empower these teachers and students with what are these early warning signs that we see, and build a culture in the school where students and staff are comfortable coming forward, reporting these signs. Look, this is a holistic approach we have to look at, Dana. It's not just the students and teachers. This starts with, our politicians. Everyone has a role to play in this, not just the students, the teachers, and law enforcement.
Ken, let me give you one last word. I thought maybe I would ask you about the doctors. As Bill Malushin pointed out, I mean, I don't know how severe the injuries were, but they were able to help most of them survive.
Yes, I spoke to a doctor last night who's a prominent physician. Her hospital locked down. 5 of the kids were brought to her. She cared for them. Her own children's daycare was locked down. And it was scary for everyone, but those children that were brought to her hospital survived. And, she now, her call to action was to donate blood, to get involved in the vigil last night, and to participate in the community's healing. One thing I do want to bring to your audience is, a book as simple as A Grief Unveiled. Gregory Floyd, a Catholic father who lost a son tragically. These kind of guides can be helpful in navigating grief that's now in front of the community.
A Grief Unveiled. Hadn't heard of it?
Yes,
I will
Gregory
check it
Floyd.
Out. Okay. Ken, Chad, thank you.
Nate Foy is in Minneapolis now with the latest on the investigation. Good morning, Nate.
Hey, Aisha. So as we await that news conference from hospital officials, hopefully we'll learn a bit more about the 14 kids who were injured. We're told that all of them will survive their injuries, but I want to begin with new information that we're learning about the gunman in this case, with Minneapolis police believing at this point, the newest information is that they think he was previously at one point a student at Annunciation Catholic School, that his mother worked there previously, and that the shooter also attended the church, which, just to give you your bearings, Aisha, behind me is the school, and yesterday the kids walked right next door to this church where they began their 3rd day of school this year in Mass. when the gunman, Robin Westman, opened fire through the windows, and 2 kids ages 8 and 10 were killed. You see 2 crosses outside, a memorial for those 2 kids with flowers here, people coming and praying all morning. I'll ask my photographer to zoom up, or pan up, I should say, to these emotional support animals as this community is coming together. And I spoke with one couple who said right now they feel like prayer is all they can provide, so that's what they want to do. Listen to this, Aisha.
You just pray because these were innocent kids. I can't imagine what the families are going through. It's going to take a while to heal. You have to pray and surround the community with prayer. Protect them by prayer. Prayer is powerful.
So authorities still working to learn even more about the gunman, Aisha. Police say 23-year-old Robin Westman was born Robert Westman, and he killed himself behind the church after unloading dozens of rounds. According to records, Westman filed for a name change with the state in 2019 to reflect a change in gender identity.
We're also aware of a manifesto that the shooter had timed to be released on YouTube. This manifesto appeared to show him at the scene and included some disturbing writings. That content has since been taken down with the assistance of the FBI, and it now remains under active review by our investigators.
And one thing I want to show you, Aisha, before we send it back to you, this wreath coming from the town of Uvalde. You can see the note at the top says, "We get it, with love, Uvalde." Now, FBI Director Kash Patel says that the FBI is investigating this as a case of domestic terrorism and a hate crime against Catholics. We'll send it back to you, Aisha.
Okay, Nate Foy, live for us in Minneapolis as we await that press conference. We'll bring it to you live as soon as it happens. Nate, thank you.
Vice President J.D. Vance is speaking right now, and he's speaking about the horrific shootings in Minneapolis yesterday. Let's listen.
They are your fellow citizens. So think about it and say a prayer for them. And remember that they are as much us as our neighbors right here in this wonderful community in Wisconsin. And the thing that they need most of all is they need their fellow Americans to reach out and care about them. And I know that every single one of us is going to do that. That's the first thing that I wanted to say. The second thing that I wanted to say is when I first heard the news, I was worried that the death toll was going to be higher based on what the media reports were saying. And right now, there are still a couple of kids, some of whom in very critical condition, who may yet survive this. And I think they would appreciate your prayers, and their families would appreciate your prayers as well. So if you are the praying type, I'd ask you to say a prayer tonight for those kids that are still recovering, that they may recover fully and go on to live a full life, the life that was deprived from a couple of their classmates. And, you know, the stories, I'd encourage you to read some of the stories about what happened yesterday, about the violence, about the fact that you had 10-year-old kids laying over their friends to look after them and to try to protect them. And while yesterday was an unspeakable tragedy, I'd ask you to remember that we also saw the very best of the United States of America. And to every person who protected a friend, to every first responder, to every paramedic who made it so the death toll wasn't higher, we love you, we're proud of you, and we'll never forget the great American spirit that you showed yesterday.
Joe Cardinale is joining us now, retired NYPD lieutenant. Joe, thank you for being here in these horrific circumstances as now those children will say goodbye to those 2 small children, 8 and 10, who died. There are others still fighting for their lives at this hour. I want to get your reaction to what was just released by the FBI, and that was more details on the shooter and what they say is solid evidence demonstrating this was an act of domestic terrorism motivated by a hate-filled ideology. The evidence they included in that was the manifesto, what was written on the firearms, anti-Jewish language, Israel must fall. There was an explicit call for violence against President Trump on one of the firearm magazines. Of course, this investigation is ongoing, but there is already a lot here, Joe.
Yes, Sandra, this is a lot of hate from an individual on so many different levels, religious, political, personal. And it's just amazing to me that somebody close to this individual didn't pick this up. You know, that Aldous Hady's not professing it for the first time, as far as I'm concerned. Somebody had to hear how he hated all these individual groups and everything to a level and to a degree that he carried out this carnage that we spoke about yesterday and continue to speak about today. So, you know, the point is, this is somebody that had the means to do it, shouldn't have had the means to do it. And if they were under any sort of care, you know, I do have to question the health professionals that may have known about this and didn't take the proper action.
You know, Joe, a part of what the FBI just released and its finding from the investigation thus far is that they will employ all of their counter-terror tools, which they already are, to ensure this is fully investigated and deterred. Could you dig into that and what that means to you? Obviously, with the shooter now gone and there will be no trial, how do you make sure that you deter another individual like this from carrying out a horrific attack like this?
Well, Sandra, that's going to have to come on so many different levels. For a law enforcement perspective, you have to really start digging into these sites, these social media sites where people are doing this, and get a heads up much earlier than they could. Now, in this particular case, this was released after the incident, which makes it, you know, very hard to address. But when you see these individuals and you have people that say, oh, that's just Johnny being Johnny, that's not the fact, all right? People need to start addressing it, because in this day and age, people take things to a whole different level, and we accommodate the stupidity of people accepting practices and see it as the norm when it's far beyond the norm. This is beyond normal. And as I stated, I think the healthcare industry has to be addressed, you know, with these HIPAA laws, and start notifying police officers when they really, even if there's a hint of somebody being a danger to themselves or to the police, and they don't know if these people have the firearms or the means to do it. So they should address it accordingly. And so moving forward, I think the FBI is going to get a better handle on social media and get a better handle on the HIPAA laws to address these concerns.
So you'll see at the very bottom of our screen here that we are alerting that there is now a confirmed 3 p.m. Briefing by the Minneapolis police. They are going to give an update top of the next hour on what they are learning. These are live pics of the memorial that is happening right now, where you can see members of the community, parents and others who are gathering with their messages, candles and flowers to say goodbye to those victims that we lost yesterday. In this briefing, we are told that the police chief will talk about search warrants that they conducted and what has been found. Obviously, we could get a lot more information here, Joe, when we hear from the police at the top of the hour.
Yes, you might get some information. They're not going to privy anybody to, you know, sensitive material, because if there are other individuals that this person, this coward connected with, they're going to keep that close to the vest right now until they investigate it. But you don't know, you know, the search warrants are necessary to secure the information they need to put a rhyme or reason to this. And, you know, I'm looking at this the display of flowers and the cross and everything. And Sandra, it's just amazing that, you know, the politicians will take this to another level by, you know, putting a rhyme or reason for their own political gains, whereas you have children, the innocence of the children, 10 years old. Imagine being 10 years old and jumping on another student to protect them. That's unheard of. That's unheard of, and that's just the power of prayer that these children carry. You know, and in the absence of common sense, we do rely on prayer, and these children are taught to do the same thing. So kudos to them. They deserve all the recognition in this.
Amen. God bless them. And they've been through so much. And we watch this community grieve and remember those young lives that have been lost, Joe. Live pictures there in Minneapolis. So we do anticipate that update from the police top of the hour. Joe, appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime, Sandra.
But now I want to bring in Wisconsin Republican Congressman Derek Van Orden, who represents this district that we are currently sitting in. He joins me now on set. He's immediately walked onto set, boldly in a pair of cowboy boots. That's right. All Wisconsin turning to this Texan and saying, do you need a pair of boots, Will?
Yeah, I was just wondering now, you guys do a lot of beefer down there. But we do a lot of dairy, and I was just in a dairy barn yesterday, so although these boots look good, you don't want to smell them at this moment.
So there may be manure on these boots.
Just a little.
But I will be dead before I take a boot insult from a Wisconsinite to a Texan. But I'm proud of you. You look great,
Thank you.
Congressman. And thank you for being with us here today. This is a very serious issue, and I know that it also hits very close to home for you as well.
Yeah. Hey, it's an absolute unspeakable tragedy that these children were murdered and grievously injured in Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota, you can walk there in about 10 minutes from where we're sitting. My wife and I lost our daughter 2 years ago to cancer, and I know what it's like to lose a child. And what we need to be focusing on now is the souls of those children and their parents and their relatives, and gathering them up together because they are American citizens. And we need to help them as much as we possibly can and give them support. It's a tragic time. There'll be time for political discussions later, but the stuff the left has been throwing out now about how prayer is useless and we need to just stop doing all these things, and they completely discount our value systems and our religious beliefs.
What do you think of that, Congressman? You hear Jen Psaki, you hear commentators on CNN, you hear elected officials like Mayor Jacob Frey suggesting somehow there's either a worthlessness or a problem in prayer.
It's absolutely foolish. It is foolish. Listen, we have an incredible mental health crisis in this country now. They've been jacking up young people on these hormones, chemically castrating them, physically removing healthy body parts, and trying to convince them that they were born in the wrong body. Well, listen, this is a spiritual issue. America's having a spiritual crisis right now, and it's just manifesting itself in these horrible crimes.
All right, I've got a tight clock today because I have a long interview with the Vice President, but I don't want to leave without saying we're here. You were introduced today to a very warm applause and reception. Mid-City Steel, La Crosse, Wisconsin. You've got to be happy to see what's happening here in your district.
It's absolutely amazing. J.D. Vance is always welcome here. He came here a lot during the campaign. We have the hardest working, best folks here. We've got our manufacturing base and ag. That's what we do here in the 3rd. I'm very proud of it. President Trump loves farmers and manufacturers, as does the Vice President, and it's just wonderful to have him, and he will be back.
All right. And I love your boots, Congressman.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Will.
This is just an unbelievable tragedy. And we have to remember that there are a couple of families who yesterday had the worst day of their lives, and it's not going to get much better from here because of what this evil person took from these families, which is these two beautiful kids. That's my first response to it. My second response to it is I'm praying every single day, multiple times a day, that while two deaths is tragic, 3 deaths is even more tragic, and I hope it stays at 2, because there still are some kids who seem to be in pretty serious condition at the hospital, so we're praying for their swift recovery. And I think on the broader stuff, I mean, look, clearly this person was a mentally deranged human being. Clearly it was a transgender individual. We're going to learn a lot more, and I think the FBI and local authorities ought to try to get to the bottom of this. But you don't go and shoot up innocent children unless you are a clearly screwed up person. We're so soon after this tragedy that I think that it would be nice if we as a country could unite, say a prayer for these innocent victims, say a prayer for the kids who are still recovering, that they make a full recovery, focus on the investigation and getting to the bottom of this thing, and not immediately make it about politics. And my final point on this is when I see far-left politicians say, how dare you offer thoughts and prayers, you need action. You know, I don't care about your prayers, I care about what you're going to do to prevent this from happening. Why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't you pray for the speedy recovery of these kids who literally just got shot yesterday, while at the same time committing to making sure this doesn't happen again, or that it happens as infrequently as possible? I don't think there's anything inconsistent about saying a prayer to God for these innocent, beautiful kids, while also thinking constructively about how we're going to prevent this from happening the next time. You can do both of those things. You can hold a thought, both of those thoughts in your head at the same time. And Will, if you are a politician or you're a media commentator and 2 beautiful babies just got murdered while praying, and your politics force you to contemn prayer in response to it, you ought to get new politics, because something very wrong has gone on inside your soul.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.